Marriage therapist told me I was wrong for calling abuse hotline, that I should call her instead. I feel like I had a strong red flag with our marriage counselor today. My husband and I have been in therapy for well over a year. Things have been getting better. One of the major reasons for going to therapy is my husband's aggression and me feeling uncomfortable and not trusting of him. Things got significantly better after the 9 to 10 month mark. One got pregnant. I am almost 7 months pregnant now. We got in a verbal disagreement and he grabbed and pushed me. It was 10 p.m. at night. I was scared and didn't know who to call or what to do now that I am pregnant and this happened again. I called the abuse hotline. He said in therapy I scared him because he thought I was calling the cops, and I said I wanted to. But I didn't know what that would do to him, so I called the abuse hotline instead to understand my options because it was anonymous. Our marriage therapist told me I was wrong for doing this. That is for people who do not have a therapist, and I should call her. Like I should know to call her at that time, 10 to 11 p.m. at night? I find it really off that she would react like this. Anyone a therapist out there that could give me her point of view and why she said this to me? It was in the last few minutes of therapy, so I didn't have time to question her, but I did say, "You want me to call you late at night? Any advice on this? Thank you." Our marriage therapist told me I was wrong for doing this. That is for people who do not have a therapist, and I should call her. I think with this comment your therapist has shown clearly that her concern is with her ego and her role as a therapist, and that concern trumps your safety as well as the safety of your child. What is her background? You're right that this is off. The abuse hotline has a ton of resources at their fingertips. They can direct you to a women's shelter. Call the police. Everything quickly. Do you really want to put your life in the hands of someone who's going to be sleepy, had some wine, or is distracted taking your call? You're smart to see this as a red flag. But there may be a couple others. First, she should not have accepted the two of you as clients. In cases of prior abuse or violence, there's no point in couples counseling until the violent person has undergone individual counseling. As an LICSW, she's not qualified to provide that level of therapy. On calling the abuse hotline, you had to do what worked for you in the moment. But what matters most is what you do next. You absolutely cannot stay with him. I hope you see this. Don't fixate on how things seem to be getting better. He's still the same person and it will escalate again. Looks like even bringing a baby along he's not going to chance his behavior of being so abuser. Get out. Run like hell, girl. Don't add his name to the baby birth certificate so he won't have access to the baby. It's her job to protect her baby. Totally agree with others and you. Your husband pushing you while you were pregnant. Immediately call cops. Safety concern for both you and your unborn baby. Your action was perfect. Promptly ditch the therapist. They're more concerned with their ego and are blatantly lying about what they cannot do. They're not equipped to handle a physical violence incident, let alone during and after the fact. Police can intervene ASAP, within minutes. The therapist cannot. There's also a chance your therapist may be biased towards your husband. Another reason to ditch a therapist, counselor should be neutral. I do see the need to see a marriage counselor or a therapist when there are disagreements between partners that for one reason or another cannot be worked out between the spouses. But when violence is involved, this becomes an entirely different ballgame. There are very strict guidelines on how this should be handled, dictated at state level, that coordinate public safety, police, EMT, firefighters, and health professionals. Your therapist seems to be unaware of this. I would wager she is either inexperienced and/or unlicensed. In the USA, it's mandatory for them to know these rules and recognize violence, along with having to follow the rule. Else they don't get their license. Where are you? Also pay attention to the comment left by someone else. Maricopa 888 and Ebby 45. Prior to my comment. Edits. More details added. You are correct. This is a huge red flag and a prime example of why couples counseling is a terrible idea in abusive relationships. There have been a lot of studies done and articles written about it. https psychcentral.com/why-couples-work-in-abusive-relationships-1 https www.abuseandrelationship.org/content/survivors/couplestherapy.html https www.psychology-today.com/us/blog/anger-in-the-age-emotional-abuse-how-your-couple counseling made it worse. https www.psychotherapy.net/article/couples/abuse-assessment. I'd strongly recommend reading at least one of those. But the basic gist of them is this. While couples therapy is great when you have two people who both have issues and are sincerely committed to working on them, when you've got one abusive partner, then the counselor is trying to find middle ground where none exists. They'll imply that blame has to be shared between the aggressor and their target, and essentially teach the abusive partner an entire new gaslighting skill set. Beyond all that, it is also extremely inappropriate that your counselor would object to you calling the abuse hotline, which was exactly who you're supposed to call in a situation like this if not the police. Calling a marriage counselor for emergency help with an abusive spouse attacking you is fucking ludicrous. And it offends me as a therapist. The fact that she's guilt-tripping you over this and essentially telling you not to seek help for an emergency situation is absurd. And frankly, if I were in your shoes, I would report her. At a minimum, I'd recommend dropping the couple's counseling. It does not suit the situation you're in. You need an individual therapist, not someone who tries to force you to compromise with someone who shoves pregnant women. That is not right. I think you would greatly benefit from calling a domestic violence hotline and talking to a neutral person. They can help you find local resources. I had a therapist once that had previously seen my ex and did not disclose it to me. She also told me that he of all men would be able to change and stop abusing. 15 years later, he has another 2 kids with 2 different women, and I know for fact he did not stop abusing women. Serious red flags with your therapist. I got a skeevy feeling of the therapist wanting the billable hours, so that is why the therapist was upset. That long in counseling and he put his hands on you again? Yeah. No. That's a strong sign he's not putting in the work to change, or that he can't change. In which case you need to leave as soon as possible. Whether your therapist just wanted to help you herself or whether there's ill things afoot, I can't tell. But you are never wrong for calling the abuse hotline. When you're being abused, it's there for exactly that reason. Has your therapist been completely clear with your husband about getting his temper in check? Because if not, she's been enabling him and putting you and your child in danger. You should not be in therapy with your abuser. You should be in therapy by yourself. The abuse hotline would also tell you that going to therapy with your abuser is a bad idea. Abusers just learn to abuse you more effectively. What she said is absolutely not okay. You were physically assaulted by your husband. You should have called the police. Your therapist should encourage you to do whatever you need to for your physical safety. A responsible therapist shouldn't be trying to give couples therapy to a man that lays hands on his partner. End of story. You two should have never been in couples therapy once she learned of the physical abuse. Please plan an exit. He hurt you while you were pregnant. This will only escalate. www.thehotline.org. Therapist is 100% wrong for saying that. She's a therapist, she's not trained for emergencies in domestic abuse contexts. Call the police if your partner is getting violent. And get a new therapist. I am almost 7 months pregnant now. We got in a verbal disagreement and he grabbed and pushed me. I mean, yeah, it's a red flag from the therapist. But honestly, it's microscopic and totally insignificant compared to the red flags from your husband. Your therapist should be reported. Couples counseling is a very bad idea where there is domestic violence present. Dump her. Contact a domestic violence charity for support ASAP. Being pregnant often escalates the abuse. Hi. I'm so sorry for what your husband is doing to you and that you're now being revictimized by your marriage counselor. I'm an advocate at a domestic violence crisis center. You called the hotline for exactly what it was created for: 24 hours confidential support. They are qualified to give you advice on the dynamics of DV. Your rights and resources in your area far better than your marriage counselor. At least 50% of the survivors who I work with are also in therapy for clinical mental health needs. So we can absolutely still be a resource when there are co-occurring issues like depression, mental illness. As others have mentioned, it can be dangerous to utilize couples therapy when there's domestic violence. Because the person who is abusing you can use things disclosed in therapy to continue that power and control dynamic and/or shift blame for their actions onto you. I hope you and your baby stay safe. Please know that this is not your fault and there's nothing you could have done to change his behavior. What a fucking guy lol. He tried to guilt trip you when he was pushing and grabbing a 7-month pregnant woman. He clearly doesn't feel bad about it. Why are you wasting your time and risking your life with a spouse like this? Marriage should have ended a while ago and you're worried about the therapist's reaction? You don't go therapy with your abuser for one. And that counselor is wrong. I would never shame a client for reaching out for help. In fact, my first session I go over crisis lines. We find the nearest typically for clients that endorse suicidal ideation. And we pick on support person to call in emergency. It's good practice. Stop the counseling now. As others have said, something is definitely off there. This person is not acting in your best interests and it is essential that you seek independent advice. You should not be going anywhere near therapy with a man who is verbally and physically abusing you. Pregnancy or no pregnancy. I'm saddened to read this but unfortunately not shocked. You deserve better. I'm not sure that couples counseling when one of the people is abusive is advised. I'm also unhappy with her response to you. You call who you want when in such situations. Also, she should have boundaries around her availability. All in all, trust your gut on this one. Oh no. Nope. Not okay. You do need to call the police next time. And you also absolutely need a new therapist. She should be openly denouncing violence and should be asking you if you need help, resources to exit. She has an ethical obligation to intervene in these situations by separating you and asking if you are safe. She isn't doing that and is also encouraging you not to call for help. Please consider getting to a safe space now. Your husband is not going to stop being violent. Your therapist is not helping. There is no see both sides when it comes to physical abuse, even for a therapist.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.